Nice.
Is it good? Cool. Hello to everybody who's not currently here. I don't know how to start these things. There's your intro. Um, Going off of what you just said though about how the news is portraying it is the biggest thing that I've realized over the past few weeks is that while it's okay to like look at the news for information and stuff, look at the people who are actually on the streets, the people who are walking in these protests, the people who are witnessing them firsthand, because there will be cases like that video of the NYPD running through that barrier on the news. It's so easy to cut it off and make it look like it's the protesters' fault. But when you watch the full video, you see those cars like shoot forward and try to hit people. So while it's kind of hard because apparently they've been policing stuff on social media now, I'm not too sure about it. Just watch videos and stuff. I've been downloading every single one I see so that I have it for later. But there's like so many of like firsthand experiences, and that's the truth. Like they can't edit or change that, whether it goes against what they believe or not. It's just showing what's actually happening. I can send any of the things I have to people if they want it or whatever. But I mean, I've been reposting it all over my social media, a bit too aggressively. But yeah, it's out there. You just got to ask the people who are down there, not the people sitting behind news desks.
And I want to bring up social media and how many people are, getting their information from, news sources rather than, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
even. I mean, I I feel as if because I don't know if this is me just trying to ignore the news outlets, but I feel as if they are censoring rather than showing the hard truth. Is that something that I'm blissfully, or not blissfully, but is that something that I should be paying attention to? Is do does everybody agree that social media at this point in our lives, is that a more useful resource than credible news outlets? Or how does that um, help us in the long run understand what's really happening in our country and all over the world? Like, how is that changing our perspective and changing the movement?
I think that this is a really unique time in history in which we're being forced to question journalistic integrity. I think we talk a lot here in America about fake news because our president invented that. And when we think of Fox News, we think of like basically blatant lies. But what I've realized with this particular moment in history is that's not the only case. The stuff that CNN is reporting is true. Okay, it's like this. The when all those people were protesting to be let out of quarantine so they could kill other people with their germs, um, it was a very very small movement, but it got a lot of press coverage, which means that people were under the impression that it was a huge movement in the US, which meant that it recruited more people and had more political sway. So it's not just about how our news reports, but it's about what our news reports on. And I think that's a big issue with like traditional news sources. The use of Twitter and Instagram and things like that, I think, is so important, and it actually touches on, if you guys want to do some academic reading after this, I would really look into anarchy, because anarchy is not just the absence of any social order. It's about having a heterogeneous source of voices, that every person who's there has something they can bring to the equation. And I really think that's what social media news is teaching us right now, because the people are using their voices to get these messages across. And I think a lot of people are influenced deeply by their empathy with other people, and that is based on understanding those other people's experiences. And I think we can really see that at the heart of this movement. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was mentioning to Zai the other day, the largest form of news source that I've had is TikTok. Straight up. Twitter, extremely left-winged. I mean, you know, it just, yeah, it's different when you have other people's words to back stuff up. Like if you go into Twitter and Instagram and all of that, the majority of what you're looking at is words. Yes, you do have pictures to come with it, but it's people's voices that are coming through. However, when you get TikTok, you're given a video. And yeah, it might be a really short video, but within that video, you can see what's going on. Like, I don't know if any of you guys have seen the video of that 74-year-old man being pushed down on the stairs. Like, the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. However, if you look at it on TikTok when it was posted originally, that's it. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing this man being pushed and no one helping him. The people who do try to help him are being arrested. However, I saw the exact same video on Twitter where somebody was defending the action of the police. And it's like, oh no, you know, this guy, he had other health conditions and he apparently, you know, is a part of some KKK group and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but if he is, then why is he being pushed over? If he was, why was he aggressively going up to the police and saying, hey, look, things need to change? If he was part of a KKK group, you would think he'd be on the other side of the police there. You know, it's like people are trying to attach words to a video to change it around and to make people believe that it's another side. Whereas for me, if I'm watching it straight from TikTok, I keep saying TikTok as it's posted live, that's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm getting out of this. And then I'm able to formulate my own opinions without somebody then attaching their words to it and changing, like trying to change my mind. You know, it's just, that's where I found my greatest news source, is just by scrolling through and looking at the Black Lives Matter hashtag and just seeing, you know, a lot of people are posting live videos and they have live sessions going on, and watching that straight from how it's being portrayed before somebody puts words onto it to try and sway my opinion, you know? So I'm finding video is a much more reliable source than your major outlets, because they're just pumping words, but not actually looking at what's going on.
I never in my life thought I would be defending TikTok, but I completely agree. A lot of the videos that I have, like there's one, for instance, that I still, like, I can see everything in my head, is this guy being arrested, and this cop takes that man's hand and puts it on a baton, forcing him to grab it, and when he does, he starts hitting the head of the person that he's arresting. And the video, I first saw that on Facebook with a post saying this man tried to take the cop's weapon. It's so crazy how just a couple words can completely change how you watch a video. Because when I initially watched it, that's the idea that I was going through, like, that's going through my head as I'm watching it. I'm like, why is this man trying to attack the police? But when I watched it again later, just the video itself with no other context to it, it is so abundantly clear what is happening. And that it's happening a lot, especially in the news. It's very easy to do it because these people are talking directly in your ear, saying that these things are happening. And that's true for both sides. That's true for both cases. There was an instance of a police officer was trying to help this kid. It was before they started firing rubber bullets. I'm trying to remember exactly how he got injured. But protesters started to hit the police officer. And the initial time I saw that was people saying that the police officer was trying to attack them, which wasn't true at all. Yes, the majority of police officers, I truly believe, are not helping, but this man was trying to. He didn't have any of his riot gear. He was just trying to help his kid. But they posted that video saying that he was trying to attack, and that's exactly how I saw it. But speaking on the police, though, that's another thing that I was curious as to what people thought, because this phrase keeps getting thrown around. It's like bad cops, good cops, and where that line is drawn. For me, it's abundantly clear that it's more than just your actions that define you as doing your job or not. If your colleague standing next to you is kneeling on a man's neck and you stand there and do it, you are saying, I know what you are doing, and I am perfectly okay with you doing it. And that does not define a good cop for me. And that is the same for if you're in another state and you see a cop doing that and you're like, that's on him. Because stepping aside and letting something happen it's not helping to prevent that issue from occurring again or to stop it when you can. So I was curious as to like, because that's a big problem is people are worried about like attacking police officers, especially I have friends who have cops that are family members. Where do we draw that line? And how exactly do cops both keep the idea of what they're supposed to do, which is protect the people, but also show that they don't support this kind of behavior, that they don't support this brutality?
Um, if I could weigh in on that, uh, I've got a few friends, small handful of friends in my town. Um, One happens to be a mentor who chose to go into civic service and uh, uh, are police officers in my town and in the surrounding towns. I've been thinking about them a lot recently, and this mentor of mine posted on all of his socials recently, basically giving uh, uh, the argument that not all cops are bad. There are good ones out there, and the good ones, the good ones are as disgusted as the rest of us. And where I land on the issue is, if you have Zai, like you're saying, you know, if you have 10 bad ones and 1,000 good ones, and the 1,000 good cops aren't holding those 10 accountable, you got 1,010 bad cops. Um, and it's, for me, again, white privilege, and having grown up thinking police are there to help me, knowing that police are there to help me. Even I've had a couple of interactions with police officers. I've gotten pulled over. I've been caught smoking pot. Nothing bad has ever happened to me. The black and otherwise the black and brown people that I have lived with in my life have had harrowing stories of those same police forces, of Stamford, Connecticut, where I live, and Miami, where I went to college. It's impossible for me to listen to those experiences and not recognize that the scales are tipped in my favor. So I yeah, I subscribe to the all cops are bastards ideology at this point. Not to say that those friends that I have, and that mentor, not to say that they aren't good people. I know the people that I know, and I know that they are good people, but I think the argument being made here is that policing as a profession is in America is inherently racist, is inherently bastardized at this point. I haven't raised that issue with this mentor and with this handful of friends, but I know that it's time to. So I'm saying it I'm saying it on a recorded Zoom call so that I hold myself accountable. I need to have those conversations with these people in my life. If not just to see where they stand, more so to shift their thinking. Yeah, that's where I land.
I want to throw this in there too, because I completely agree with you, with everything you say and your stance you take, and I have the same stance. I truly believe that the entire police force system is built upon, it was built upon racism. It started as a way to capture runaway slaves. Um, and those ideologies are still present today. Um, I want to give this like kind of example as to like a lot of people when they hear us say that will say, well, what about the looters, the people who are using this protests to go and steal from people and just do whatever they want and cause havoc?
Right.
Yes,
Don't we
that is
need
absolutely
police for
true.
that?
That is happening, and the difference isn't the fact that we're pretending like it's not okay or that it's okay. I I've been BLM for a while, like years. Um, every single person I have seen within like the email list, within the discussion boards that I know personally that who aren't, the protesters are holding them accountable. And there are so many videos of people physically stepping between people. There's the video of those kids who took down a Target pole and were holding it to push back people who were trying to steal. There was a video of two black ladies confronting these white women who were destroying this business and spraying BLM on it, saying, "We never asked you to do this." That's the difference, is that people are actively stepping up and saying, "Don't you mistake our message. That is not what we are here for." I have yet to see that from the vast majority of police officers. This happened in some states. There are police officers who have turned in their badges and said, "I will stand where I believe justice is." And right now, that is not with the police force. But as a whole, it is a lot more defensive, where they try to push the blame onto something else as opposed to actually condemning these police officers. Because if this hadn't grown to the point it was, I have no doubt in my mind that those four police officers would be sitting at home right now watching Netflix. Nothing would have happened. And while they're arrested, there are lists of names that haven't been. Lists of people who haven't been punished for the lives they've taken and for the things that they've done, and no one's holding them accountable at all. That is the difference. I'd like to just put that out there as like, it happens on both sides, but how, and there are sides. It's easy to say that there's no sides and like love all people and stuff, but change doesn't happen if we can't accept the fact that there are sides right now, and there have been for a while. And right now, the biggest difference is that one side is holding themselves and other people accountable, while one side is blaming other people and not looking inward.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I would just like to make the point, like, I've heard a lot of people being like, well, what about the good cops? Of course, there are good police officers, absolutely. But the reason we don't hear about them or talk about them is because being a good cop should be expected. It should not be praised. We should not, applaud them for doing their jobs. This should be an expected thing the minute they put on a badge. They need to respect others. And it's very frustrating, because, I do have family members that are police officers, but I still stand with ACAB, ACAB, 1312, fuck 12, because the bad police officers are astronomically high. It is an outstanding number of these police officers who are bastardizing the uniform that they wear. It's outstanding that we are seeing this at such a disproportionate rate where we shouldn't be. It's disgusting and it's humiliating as an American citizen to have family members who are part of the police force. And to make another point about TikTok and social media, a lot of police officers who I've seen on these social media sites who are saying, "I stand with you," have either been fired or they quit because they cannot stand to be in the situation where they are on the wrong side of this. It's embarrassing for them to want to do their job and be a civil servant. That is what they are. They are civil servants to protect us American citizens. It is astronomically high, the number of police brutality rates in this country, and the only reason why this was so why George Floyd was so outstanding, and it was because it was on video. Can you imagine what would have happened if this wasn't caught on a 9-minute video? You know, it's tragic that we all know that nothing would be done right now if none of this was caught on video. It's heartbreaking, absolutely. And, you know, I'm just going to circle back to the point. Don't applaud or praise cops for doing the jobs they are doing. They should be expected to be doing the good, right thing. And to be, you know, if, you know, what I was talking to my parents today, what this police officer, Derek, whatever the fuck his last name was, I don't care, because he's a trash human being. But if he would have done his job correctly, he would have gone up to George Floyd, said, "May I see that $20 bill?" He would have scanned it and said, "This is a correct $20 bill. You are free to go." That is what he should have done. And that is where it should have ended. And that's just what I have to say. Good cops, don't praise them. They're doing their jobs. All right? Bad cops, fire them, incarcerate them. That's where, you know, there's no middle ground there. It's not just fire them or suspend them. Incarcerate the people who are murdering innocent lives. That's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what I was going to say was, at least from an outside perspective, you know, it's difficult because here in Australia, we've been very blessed with a working system. You know, we've kind of figured things out in a way that everyone is treated equally within those circumstances. However, you know, we do have Aboriginal lives here that there is still an issue where cops do take prejudice to that. However, we do tend to have a bit of a working system that's been figured out. Not perfect, but it's there. And from what I've seen from a lot of cops here in Australia, now my brother's trying to join the force, my mom is trying to join the force. They both want to become Australian police officers, which is a big thing considering that we've come from South Africa. You know, I was born and raised there. It is an entirely corrupt system. There is genocide, there is xenophobia. It's not a good country to live in. And yet they've both taken that stand that they want to join the police force because they believe in what they're trying to do. Now, from an outside perspective, I inherently agree with what everyone has said there today. So I think we do also have to recognize there's people who are joining because they want to be the change. You know, they want to join their force because they're like, I understand that this force has had issues with racism in the past. And that's why we're seeing a lot of Black police officers, because they want to join to make a change. And I think a lot of those people have kind of just been swept under the rug and let's focus on the bad cops. But there are some good cops that are trying to be that change. And I don't think they're getting enough recognition. And there are some that have either quit or have been fired, or, you know, they themselves have received some brutality from this. But it's such a, okay, I'm going to go into movie world. A lot of us are actors, right? So I'm going to say we've all seen the movie The Hunger Games, right? A lot of those peacekeepers didn't believe in what they were doing, so they tried to stop. Their families, their friends ended up paying for that. Katniss didn't believe in the system. She tried to stop it. Her sister, her mother, her Gail, all of them, they ended up paying for that. So I think we also then have to look at the underlying system of a lot of these good cops aren't leaving. Is there another reason why? Have their families been threatened? Have their livelihoods been threatened? I think we also have to broach on that subject because that hasn't been talked about enough, you know. But again, that's from an outside perspective. That's from me being very blessed to see that the police force is doing something to change here. So, you know, that's why I wanted to have this chat with Zayas, because as someone who, you know, I've lived in 2 different countries and I've also been in America. You know, I lived in South Africa till I was 19. I've been living in Australia for the past 4 years, and I was in America for 3 months. You know, I've seen a little bit of each country, and very funny how we're all so different, but also similar. There's inherently issues with America, there's issues with South Africa, and there's issues with Australia. And I just think I think we need to be calling out why some of these people aren't quitting, why some of these people feel threatened to stay in the force and to go through this, But yeah, just opening up that conversation, because I don't think it's been opened up enough. And I feel like there could be a lot of underlining factors as to why a lot of these cops are staying. Like, I recently saw a video of a female police officer, black female police officer, and the crowd was chanting "Black is beautiful." And she was just muttering under her breath. She wasn't creating a stand, she wasn't kneeling, but she was muttering under her breath, "Black is beautiful." And I think she wasn't in the position to quit and stuff, but why? Has she been threatened? Has her livelihood been threatened? And I think we need to open up that subject.
So to talk about what Natalie was saying, I've had this conversation with Zai and Kat before, actually, a long time ago, about Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter. And I am 100% of the opinion that if you decide to be a police officer, you are making a sacrifice. You are saying that you prioritize every citizen in the United States above your own life. That's what you're doing. To serve and protect means you serve and protect all U.S. citizens, even if they have been proven in a United States court of law to be a criminal. That is your job. So anytime anyone's like, it's scary, they're scared, it's dangerous, I'm like, no, that's the choices that they made. But in terms of what Savannah said, it's very, very clear that some police officers, that's how they make money. And if they quit their job, they will no longer have a source of income. And they have to make that decision for themselves. I'm sure that it's probably a difficult one. And I'm sure many of them have families to think about. It's the United States, like, incessant attachment to late stage capitalism is a great danger to us, honestly. It's the same deal with opening up all these states right now. People either have to go back and risk their life, or they will starve to death because our government is refusing to give them unemployment if technically their states are open and they can work, because then they'll have quit their job. So that's probably something else we have to look at reforming in this country, is how we help people who no longer have jobs. But I don't know if that's an excuse. I really don't know if that's good enough. I would love to hear from some of you guys, because I think it's such a complex matter, one's personal livelihood versus what you think to be morally correct. I mean, we've seen this throughout history over and over again. Nazis, that was their job. They're just doing their job. They were doing it wrong. Like, they were definitely doing something wrong. So I don't know if economic concerns are a good enough reason for an individual to absolve themselves of blame and guilt. At the same time, I can understand why they would be scared, especially in this economy.
Right. If I can jump on that, that's a comparison as an American Jew that I draw every day, seeing police brutality, is like,
it's a genocide. That's what it is.
Gestapo tactics and a need, and when I see those Gestapo tactics, I see a need for lack of a better term, these Nuremberg trials. I don't think the incentive of regular pay, of course, that doesn't outweigh the brutality that these law enforcement officers are bringing on peaceful protesters. Absolutely not. God, I'm sorry. I need to. That's just my 2 cents. I need to.
Of course.
Theoretically, Bennett, I completely agree with you. But how do we practically implement that solution? How do people quit their jobs and not starve to death when we live in a country that doesn't care about providing for the poor? Like, because I completely agree that cops should realize they're doing something wrong and abandon the institution. The most recent mass abandonment of a police force I can think of is that case with the 74-year-old man. A bunch of cops are protesting because they don't think that their fellow officers should be suspended, which is disgusting. Yeah.
Ass backwards. My girlfriend is in the room.
So that's exactly what he and I were talking about. Hi, I'm Leslie, Mexican from Texas. What's up? So that's exactly what Ben and I were talking about the other day, is that in order to be a lawyer, it's what, on average, 7 years that you have to study law? Right. And they are defending all these cases, so many more. Okay, fine. Police officer, how many weeks of training is it? 8 weeks, maybe? And right now they're graduating early in New York City. But well, that's a different topic, right? Okay, fine, a different discussion. But if you are going to defend the law, I think you should fully understand it. And if it takes 7 years, there's a gap there. That's what needs to happen. There needs to be more training. Also, there needs to be psych evaluations for every single member. And that's my input.
That's also true. I've said this for a long time too. Correctional officers have very little training and so much power over people. And it's a relatively well-paid job that you can get for just a high school diploma. We in America, again, due to capitalism, have these really like backwards ideas about supply and demand. And so like you can find people who want to be correctional officers for a relatively good wage, and it means they don't have to get into, like, they don't have to go through college. They can start their career right away. But it's a very similar situation to teachers. We don't value education here in America, so we pay our teachers very little. So we have a poor quality of education because we don't have the right, not only the right supplies for our teachers, but also the right people being teachers.
Right. So I think to answer the broader question, we need a restructuring of our of the funding that goes into our social systems. A concept that I've seen floating around social media and petitions that I have signed, at least in New York, detail redirecting funds to social workers, to conflict de-escalation, people who are trained in that. And I think that those things need to be brought into policing. Well, I'm sorry, because I'm saying two things here. I guess either bring those things into policing, the deference, and give them the due diligence that they need in order for police officers to protect and to serve the way they should, or redirect those funds from the police department, from police departments, and redirect them to municipalities that will get that done.
I agree with a lot of this about how the system itself is what is allowing for all these things to happen. It extends so much more than just the police force alone. It's the way that people are being taken advantage of in the law, in the system of the law, because a black athlete who was accused by a female for raping her was in jail for years, and she admitted that she lied, and he still was kept in for a while after that. So much from a case that had no evidence to back it up. All it had was this white girl and this black man. Then on the other hand, why is it that Brock Turner is probably right now walking around our streets? A man who had all the evidence stacked against him. And they defended him for the exact same reasons that they defended the other guy, that he's an athlete with a promising career. The only difference is, because they financially were in the same situation, so it can't be a case of the rich versus the poor. It's absolutely not that case. It's because of how he looked. So it can be seen as a mistake for them, but for us, it is expected. It is seen as normal for us. Also, hi, Jenny. We noticed you come in. I didn't want to say that you didn't see it. But speaking of the system, a friend of mine wasn't able to join us today, but she wanted me to anonymously share this story of her and her husband, because she agrees that the system is absolutely skewed. And I think it'll help shed light, especially for those of us who've never really experienced the system fully. But I'm going to try to summarize this best I can. But she said that her and her husband were in Texas when they were arrested for weed possession. They didn't have a lot, enough to be their dealers or anything, but it was enough. The officer that was arresting them asked whose it was, and my friend begged her husband, a black man, to let her take the blame, and he refused. He said that he didn't want her going to jail alone, so they said that it was both of theirs. They were both arrested. They're both put into cells in solitary. But when everything was done, my friend was able to get a lawyer, someone who knew the DA personally and was able to help defend her. Her husband, she said, was funneled through a probationary program after about a year or so of waiting, but still faces the felony charge. Hers are completely gone. Same exact charges, same exact situation, at the exact same place, same people, everything. One person was completely let off with no consequences, and the other is still facing charges. And it doesn't surprise me. I've had a couple cases of things like that. I shared this on a video I put on Insta and Facebook, but I have instances where a girl and I got into an argument, and she said she was going to go to deans of UM and say that I raped her, based off of a story I told her in confidence of a girl who date rape drugged me. And when I told her that you can't spin this story, she told me that she was a little white girl and I'm a big black man, she's going to win. And when I showed those text messages as evidence, none of the deans apologized for having charges or apologized for the two police officers who were sitting outside the door during this entire meeting. They just let me go without a word. The organization I was a part of with this person never apologized, never did anything about it, but asked me to be the one to step down. And I've had cases like that everywhere I go. In Utah, I was pulled over on a military base because I had my lights off, which is fine. That's a reasonable thing. The cop called for a drug dog to search me. So I had to wait there for half an hour and was late getting home. It happens so frequently at this point that when I have conversations with other black people about this stuff, it no longer becomes a state of shock. I just saw all of your faces light up in shock from the story that you have not heard before. Every time I've told somebody about this, another brother or sister of mine, they just shake their head and say, that's how it is. It has become so normalized that it becomes expected, and we're taught that it's going to happen to us. Not how to avoid it or like what to do if it happens, but when. And it's more than just because of police brutality. Police brutality is a result of the fact that this system is skewed horribly. And people think because, we can vote now, which is still being restricted sometimes, and, because MLK Jr. walked, that every problem is gone, that nobody's taking advantage of us or holding us back, and that's not true at all. It's the idea that they live comfortably, or that they live this one specific life, so everybody must have the same chance to do that, and it's not true. But yeah, I was curious because like I have many different experiences. I could go on and on about it, but I was curious as people who see this from the outside. I want to know what it's like to see this happen. If you do have any experiences of like even witnessing it firsthand, or like if you know someone who has been, like I'm curious as to like what your first thoughts were, because I know what my first thought is. It's again and again. The day I found out about George Floyd wasn't a day of me breaking down in tears. It was a day of me thinking back to a time when a cop told me that he'd make me a hashtag. So I want to know what it's like thinking about this from the outside and seeing.
Okay. Well, this is a friend from high school. We were in the same class for 4 years, and she was a very, very proud Ethiopian woman, and she is extremely successful in her, just how she speaks. She's so proud of herself, and she has every single right to be. Not even gonna, she's amazing. And she had posted on Facebook, or maybe Instagram, one of the two platforms, but she was talking about, and this isn't just police, this is people in my neighborhood. And I come from Oregon, and when people think of Oregon, they think, Portland, blue, progressive. It's not. Like, we have so many things to overcome as a state, but her story was, on her door, she put a sign that just said Black Lives Matter, just on her house door, on her property. I can't stress that enough. It was her property. One of her neighbors, which again, we are predominantly white state and city. It's, one of her neighbors went up onto her property and ripped it off of her door. When she told her dad that she wanted to go to the police because they trespassed, he said, "No, it was a warning. We are lucky. Don't do it again." And it's hard not to choke up about that, because she's a girl I knew from high school. I knew her all 4 years, and she has okay, I'm not gonna do that. I want to speak, as gracefully as possible without getting emotional. She has the biggest heart, and I've met her parents multiple times. They are great people as well. They have raised, 3 amazing children who are proud of who they are. And when they show that they're proud, people in my community tear them down for it. And the most I could do was reach out to her and say, "I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do?" Because she's just a few streets over from me. And she says, I don't know. I don't know what to do myself. Because she knows if she goes to the police, she's going to get blamed. And that's just such a hard truth, which is, it's not always police brutality, and it's not always the police killing others. It's about the white people who show themselves off as activists and progressive. It's performance. It's performance and activism tied together. It is disgusting. And when I asked her if there was anything I can do, and she says, "I don't know," because she doesn't want me to get hurt. I'm not going to be the one to get hurt in the situation. I know that I have a shield around me that's my skin color. And it's absolutely disheartening to know that she's scared for herself and for her family, all because she put a homemade Black Lives Matter sign on her property. And people, blatant racism to her and to her family. It's not always cops killing others. It's their words being shut down. And it's not just, Black Lives Matter. It's her, she's proud of herself. And that's all I have to say. I just want to know if anybody else has had an outside experience where they don't know what to do in that perspective. And, I'm just curious if anybody else has seen this, from an outside perspective, because, a lot of us are white. I mean, actually, Zai, you're standing alone in this, and I'm so interested to hear your perspective, because we can never know how you feel, and we never will, because again, it's a shield around our bodies that is our skin color, which is a chemical composition in our skin, but it's the color of our skin that protects us. And how can we use the color of our skin to protect others? I'm just very curious on to know how much, how more we can do, or how can we do more to protect others until we don't have to protect them anymore, until they are protected by themselves, just for living. I'm very curious, just,
Thank you for sharing this story, because especially now, I think a lot of people forget that it's more than just cops who are doing this. Like, people already forgot about a couple of days ago when a bunch of white supremacists, there's no other way to call them because even they admit, marched to a protest with guns in hand, ready to shoot any protesters that came their way. I think a lot of people also forget this isn't a black problem. It's not. It is a problem, but that is also white. Because we're not the ones who made this system. We're not the ones putting on a badge and saying, you're darker, I'm going to shoot you. It can't be fixed solely through us. The most we are able to do on our own is get the conversations going. And that's exactly what this has all been about. We've been trying so hard to get people to just actually listen and try to understand that we can't fix this on our own. Not in the system that you are running, that you are a part of. And it gets blown over so much because it's so easy to direct blame onto other issues. But that doesn't change the fact that each community can solve their own issues. And each community is. Every possible group that you can make, I have seen people trying to fix stuff that is within that group. But I have yet to see anything between groups. I have yet to see anything black and white, American and illegal immigrants. I have yet to see any case where it's separated groups trying to come together. And I'm hoping that that's the biggest thing I want out of everything going on, is that we don't need to not see color or anything, because I think that's stupid. Color is incredible, and the culture that everyone brings is freaking great. I've been saying to my friends, white people gave us people like Beethoven. That's fucking awesome. We gave you blues. You're welcome. We don't need to ignore what makes a person a person. We need to stop hating on them for it. And that starts at way more than just police brutality. That starts with the elementary schools that wouldn't let me and my brother get tested into the gifted program because they assumed we're stupid. It started the theater community. You see all these actors coming forth, just because we have Hamilton doesn't mean that we're represented or that we're welcome and loved. We are seen as token gifts to throw culturally into shows. I'm trying to keep myself from ranting because there is so much that like I want to say, but I want to keep it focused. But with your story with your friend, and with so many others, a lot of people forget that it's not just the higher ups of this system. It's not just the 1%, because there are people who live in our own neighborhoods who have the same mindset. And we can't always expect that we can make change by going immediately to the top. It has to start with convincing our neighbors to be our neighbors and our friends, to not close their door on us or rip things down from ours.
I think that opens the door. It opens a few doors for us to talk about. We've been talking about overt racism, but it opens the door for us to talk about covert, right? And you're right, Zai.
Oh,
It
can I just
starts.
mention one thing really quickly?
Please.
Just because it was about what Zai was talking about like different groups of communities working together. I would really if you guys have a moment, suggest reading A Perfect Moral Storm. It's a philosophy paper about why sometimes it's so hard to make different communities of people work together. And that paper, it's not specifically about racism, but I think that the lessons I learned from that paper, I can apply to understanding this situation. I know everybody has really long reading lists right now. I do too. But if you have a moment, it's not a long paper and you don't have to read all of it. And it really touches on the issues I brought up. Sorry for interrupting you. Please go on.
No, you're fine. Stephen M. Gardiner is the author of the paper, right? I'm sorry. I was I zoomed away to Google that paper, and so I can save it for later. I completely agree with the sentiment that it starts with us, and it starts in our neighborhoods. It starts with our neighbors, and the friends that we've been complicit to. I'm personally thinking of a guy that I have dropped out of contact with since COVID started. That's another story. But this is a friend that I've had since middle school, and since we were old enough to drive around, we'd be driving around blasting mostly rap music. We both love Black culture, and something that I never understood was why this 6'4" big white dude, he's an intimidating guy, why he felt the need to drive around and pepper in the N-word with an EH at the end. Oh, I'm being casual with it. I'm not using a hard R. What do you mean? I'm not offending anybody. And of course, there are two white guys in the car, and I was complicit in just sitting back in my own uncomfortability and thinking, okay, well, I'll be out of this car in long enough, and I won't have to deal with that for the rest of the night. But that's not good enough from me. That's the reckoning that I'm having with myself. So overt and covert racism, right? Now, I gotta sack up if I'm gonna get in touch with this guy. Just the way that we had left our friendship after some COVID arguments is tenable, and I don't really want to. I don't want to even try, because I don't think I would get far with that guy. But I guess what I'm saying is I gotta try. The only other thing that the second thing that I want to bring up and pose to you guys, on the subject of covert racism, Zai, you were saying that every community has to deal with it, and every community is dealing with it, which I think is a beautiful sentiment. But just recently, digging into my county, the county that I live in, I'm in Southern Connecticut, Fairfield County. It's one of the wealthiest counties in all of the United States. I think second only to Orange County in California. A friend of mine was looking into exclusionary zoning as a source of covert racism in Fairfield County, and it's fucking real, you guys. This real estate developer in Westport, Connecticut, for over 15 years has been fighting the development of affordable housing in Westport, Connecticut. And I know that it doesn't mean anything to you guys, but this is such an affluent community. Really, and I live in a town with great economic dichotomy. There are really, really rich people, there are really, really poor people, and there's a fuck ton of people in between. The town that I'm Westport, the other town that I'm talking about, is not that way. They don't have a great economic dichotomy. So this friend of mine has been calling out the town of Westport, has been calling out this real estate developer, got a great many people to email this woman, and she sent out a tepid response being somewhere along the lines of, your hearts are in the right places. We need more people like you. Keep fighting, but not in this town. And sent that out as an email blast to everybody who had challenged her. And then people pushed back on that, actually engaged her initial response. And that's where she got, as soon as people started engaging, she started getting fucking nasty. So I bring that up to highlight the fact that fucking white supremacists are everywhere and are very quiet about it. Like oh, sorry, I had my stuff, I had my chat pushed over a little. Ginny, I didn't know that you're in Connecticut right now. What up? That's so cool.
Yeah, I'm doing my master's at UConn.
Yo, I love that. I love Stores. That's such a cool place. Again, like with my anecdote, this has been such a wake-up call that, I thought I was doing so good. I thought I was one of the good ones. I thought I was a real ally. And that's not to say that I'm not, but I could be doing so much more and so much better. So that it's putting the onus on us as white people who have been living in this, like Natalie was saying, living with this shield around us at all times. It's been a real fucking wake up, a rude awakening. Yeah, so starting tomorrow, I'm blowing this real estate developer's door down, you know, literally, figuratively. But yeah, that shit can't fly anymore. Simply can't.
I agree with. Thank you for sharing the information too. And I don't know
Yeah.
if you saw Callie's message, but she was asking like share the information with each other, so we can help with it. A lot of the things you just brought up, are things that I've been. It's things like I've had people who say they're allies, but they have done and are still doing some things that are pretty insensitive, and I don't think they realize that yet. And part of that is something that I've had to reflect on myself because for some of it, I've allowed that to happen because I've been too afraid to put my foot down and say knock it off or stop it. So it's not just allies and like white people that need to like check themselves. It's us too. I can't tell you the number of people that have come up to me and been like, "We're good friends. Can I have an N-word pass?" Like, what kind of? It is ludicrous. It is stupid. It is to be so desperate to say something that was used to be so derogatory towards people and like verbally push them, like push their faces into the dirt. Be so excited to say that when you're like singing along to a song just blows my mind. And I firmly believe that like black people are like trying to take claim of that. It's their way of saying you try to use this to push us down. We're gonna put in our music and stuff to push each other up. But we have to keep in mind where it came from. And like it's little stuff like that. It's being told like I work at the gym on campus and I was joking around with this one guy and we were just like laughing about it, but it's really true. People wouldn't listen to me on the phone unless I had my white person voice. Because if I like did not respond with hello, then they don't care. They don't listen. And it's very true in person too. I'm like we're constantly told to like black people we're the ones who act white are the reasonable and smart and intelligent ones. But like if you walk around with like your hat back or whatever, just completely casual, you're an ingrate and a thug and stuff, but they could be just as smart as you. And especially because a lot of us are actors, in theater, that happens so many times. In a lot of my college auditions, they made such big like deal over the fact that I was singing and performing a black song and a black monologue. I performed a monologue from a play where it's a guy who just got out, like he just got free. He was a slave who just got free. And people were so they worshipped it, but for the sole purpose of like they wanted somebody to be able to do that for them. They wanted to be able to say, "Come look at us! Like we have a black guy doing a thing. Come like do that." University of Utah, for instance. So a lot of theater programs they will not have their freshmen do shows. They will wait until they get acclimated a year, so they can learn more, be more prepared for college stuff, not get overwhelmed. University of Utah is exactly like that. However, they were going to give me the lead of Bring It On so that they could do it. And the thing that blew me away even more is that when I said I was going to a different school, they still did it. This show that like celebrates that black people can achieve just as much as white people. It does not matter what you look like because if you work hard, you can do great things. And that entire message is underlaid when it's a bunch of white people playing it. It's the same with those productions of Hairspray, which I have seen one where the seaweed was lighter than me, and it's the group in Australia that tried to do In the Heights, a story about like Dominican people from Puerto Rico. It's like people are so willing to look at the culture and not the people behind it. They're so ignorant to it, and to ask them to do things, they're so messed up. Like, and one of the greatest conclusions I ever had was one of my white friends who is extremely homosexual said, "I have never been asked permission to say that ever." That should tell you right there. Like, And it's like, I forget who it was, but they said, John Mulaney, in his comedy skit, he said, one word is something that we can discuss. The other is one that we're not allowed to say, that we're not saying out loud. You should understand how problematic that is, but people are so adamant about saying that. And it seems like such a small deal, but it's not. It's not. I spent years living in a place where people would greet me with that. Where people would ask me, when are you going to join the basketball team? And stuff like that every single day. And they think it's like funny or normal to assume that. Like, I'm not asking white people when you're going to become an accountant. Like, it's these little things and microaggressions that happen not just to black people. This happens to so many people. But I want, like, I'm calling this out because it's something that has to do with me. And to hear that your friend was just doing it like, oh, no one's around, so it's okay. That's even worse, that you think that you understand that it's a problem. And you think that, like, as long as the people who would get mad at you aren't there. And I'm so glad that, like, you are saying that, like, you're willing to take a step, like, put your foot down, and, like, you don't have to be black to say that's wrong. There was a video that was circulating of this white girl who, like, was 14, couldn't be older, calling out her parents for their blatant racism. I mean, the parents were saying stuff like, I don't trust them, like them as in black people. And this girl did not care. She had taken the time to educate herself, to listen and look. Age has nothing to do with wisdom. It's the fact that she took the time to learn. Jordan Kai, I should not have said the name out loud, but one of our friends put it perfectly. This Thanksgiving, ruin it. When your racist grandparents say something, you talk to them right then and there. You don't let it go. You don't laugh awkwardly. Because to let this mentality fester, that is one of the worst ways to be an ally. Is to laugh it off or to ignore it. And quite honestly, another thing that people need to stop doing is this whole cancel thing. I saw people canceling each other if they didn't post a black square, which, first off, that doesn't help us. To go on social media and say, let's have a moment of silence. The whole part of this is that people wouldn't listen. How is being silent going to help? But to shame someone for not doing that, when they are going and, like, sharing donation links and walking themselves, first off, again with the black square thing, I think it's stupid, and if that's the only thing you've done, you're not actually helping. You're not sharing people's perspectives. You're not engaging with other people and learning, like, how they're hurting and how you can help them not hurt. And if you cancel someone, you can't have a conversation like this. Because people can change and learn. I've changed and learned. It took me years to finally be at the point where I'm like, I'm not going to let this white person who doesn't know me call me the N-word. Because that is unacceptable. Because for years I thought that was okay. Because that was what I was being told. I understand that there are some people who are absolutely refusing to listen, refusing to try to change. That happens along with black people too. There are so many that love to say that our community doesn't have problems, and we do. Everyone does. But if you can't be willing to at least keep an open mind and talk about it and try to fix it, that's not helping in any sense. So the best thing you can do is make those conversations happen, because that's exactly why these protests and riots are happening. To force conversations to happen. And it's slowly getting there. Ever so slowly. Like, I never in a million years thought that there would be a literal street named Black Lives Matter. That's insane. But that's because someone listened and then did what they could to get their voices pushed up a higher level. So as frustrating as it is to talk to people, and I've had, like, a lot of, like, these discussions recently saying that, like, there's no real issues and that we're exaggerating and stuff. If you can't have that conversation, how are you going to fix the system that they are also a part of? So it needs to be more than just condemning them or canceling them.
Yeah. So I wanted to go off like the uncomfortability thing that Bennett was talking about. In high school, I went to White Knoll High School. That was the high school that Dylan Roof graduated from. And so with me being in that school, there's so much racism in that school. There was in high school. People would say the N-word as like a crowning thing of popularity in high school. They would say it as just a word in the wind without thinking about it. And I remember being in the car with some of my friends and they said that word and I, I was speechless. Like I grew up knowing not to say that. Like I grew up knowing that that wasn't something that I could do. That's not right. It's not okay. But hearing my white friends who were really, really popular say this word, I was just so taken aback and I didn't say anything because I just didn't understand like how they could say that. And then I approached one of my friends afterwards and I was like, well, how do you think that's okay to say? And she said, well, everyone else says it. And it doesn't make sense to me. Like I don't know. I don't know if I'm just like rambling about it, but that's just thinking of all these people who I know and I knew in high school say that word. And then as you were talking about change, Zai, like seeing them now, I've seen so many of them speak up on Black Lives Matter and like seeing them go through that change. And I don't know if it's performance, I don't know if it's this or that, and I don't know how to approach them and be like, how have you gone from thinking this one way to think this way now? Because I think cancel culture is really, really toxic because I don't think you can expect something big to happen without letting people change themselves and reflect on themselves, you know? I don't know, I just wanted to, and I also wanted to bring up the whole starting in the community and stuff. So I live in a very small town, basically. Um, and there was a wonderful, wonderful, peaceful protest that some of my friends attended. Um, and it was 35 people in a parking lot, you know, like doing this wonderful, wonderful thing. And this little restaurant, like, set up everything for them, gave them food, and they had bodyguards there from this bodybuilding place protecting them because there were people walking around. I will never forget, like, one of my friends that went to the protest, she posted on Twitter that someone had walked by her and said, I hope she doesn't get hit by one of my used needles. Like it's heart-wrenching to know that these 30 people were in this parking lot protesting and standing up for the Black Lives Matter movement and doing all this stuff to spread awareness, because the town that I live in is predominantly white, and it's predominantly people who are very racist, who are very, very racist, and they shut down Walmart because of it. They were they were in a different parking lot next to Walmart. They shut down Walmart, and then one of my family friends, I guess, she posted on Facebook, where is the threat? Like, where, like, genuinely being like, where's the threat and how do we eliminate that threat of this group of 30 people that were peaceful protesting? She called them a threat because Walmart shut down. And I don't know, it's just, yeah, I just felt like I needed to say that I feel like the people who are willing to have these conversations, like, possess so much, like, at least for me, like, I have so much empathy and I just feel such guilt when I see this kind of stuff. And it hurts, like, my heart to know that this kind of stuff is happening, and knowing that like my friends go through people saying that they hope a discarded needle doesn't hit them, like it just, I don't know. I just felt like from an outside view, it's just.
Thank you for sharing that. It's cool to see that even smaller people, like groups of people, are coming together. That because it's really easy to look at the people who are using this for clout and just kind of hopping on a bandwagon. But knowing that there are so many people that genuinely care is honestly one of the best parts about all this stuff going on. With the cancel culture thing you said, I completely agree. You can't expect someone to grow if you don't give them the chance. That's not to say that we have to forgive what they did. But there's a difference between forgiving and moving on, or holding a grudge and shutting them completely down. Right now, I'm in the process of trying to learn to coincide with someone who has hurt me extremely in a way that I will never forgive them for. But, and I think it's because of all this stuff going on, I can see how dangerous it is to not allow that person a chance to grow and get better, because it could be someone else they hurt in a way that's impossible for that person to recover. Have a good day at work. Thank you for joining us. I quickly lost my train of thought. But it is something that I was thinking about. That's one of the things that always confuses me, is these people who claim they understand and then do nothing. And it's so weird. They will claim to understand what it's like because they dated somebody who is black, or because their best friend is, or they have family members who are. I remember someone telling me, and I know this person has very good intentions and she's a very good person, but I remember her telling me, I don't understand the history and culture of rap because she had a younger brother who was black, the younger adopted brother. And it just confuses me as to why people would think they know more because they know a person. You can understand it. I fully believe that people can get to a point where they understand what it is, but there's something that you don't feel when you watch something happen versus when you experience it. Because when I was listening to my friend discuss how terrified she was that her family would be deported even though they're legal, I understood that fear, but I could not understand the concept of how scary it would be to be ripped away from your family and sent somewhere else. But there are people who claim to, and people who do that I do not think are good allies, because they're not. To me, a good ally is someone who tries to understand, who listens, but doesn't use their voice for that person. Like, I don't think a single black person is asking for white people to speak for us. We're asking to speak with us. But people will take it upon themselves that they're the ones who have to do it, and that when there's backlash from that, it's not on that person. It ends up hitting us even harder. So now not only do we have to get people to listen to us, but we have to get the people who listen to us to hold back, to stop making assumptions for us. And I'm starting to see that a little bit with everything going on, with all these protests and stuff. I saw someone share something and say, like, kind of saying it in the perspective of, like, I know exactly what it's like, and every group has their own problems. I will never understand what it's like to walk home at night and fear being raped because I'm a woman. I will never possibly understand what that's like. And I never claim to. When I share stuff and post anything, when I was like expressive about how much I backed up the Me Too movement, it wasn't a case of me saying, I get it. It was a me saying, like, I acknowledge that you have these issues, and I'm going to do everything in my power from my end as a man to stop it. And I can't, I can't express it enough that you can't speak for somebody else. You have to speak with them. And it hurts us when you don't. And it's not to say that, like, I'm saying that you guys do this. It's not a hollow thing. It's just something I see and, like, something that needs to be called to attention. That there's always room to grow and, like, there's ways to do this without hurting people. That you're trying to help.
I have a question.
Yeah, of course.
And I don't know if anybody else has an opinion, but there's a lot going around about Reclaim the Block and Campaign Zero, and I need to know what I should advocate for. And some of these policies seem like I completely 100% think that we should take money away from the police and invest in communities. I've said the same thing about the military for years. Everybody says we can't have public health care and we can't have a better education system, and I go, we could have a reduced military budget. So I completely get that, but the concept of abolishing the police force is still something I'm struggling with, and I get that it would not be an immediate thing, and I do have to say that I like a lot of the policies that come along with this, but I'm still I found this post on Instagram that was like trying to explain an abolitionist view of the world, like possibly in the future, and some of it makes sense to me and some of it doesn't, and I just wanted to know what policy changes do you guys support? Do you support Reclaim the Block or do you support Campaign Zero? Because they are apparently opposed now.
And for me, it's very, like, I'm one voice out of thousands, but
yeah,
I fully support defunding the police, but I do not believe that removing the police force will remove the problem. Because it's like I said before, it's the system that created the police force that's the issue. If we were to remove what created the police to be what it is today, we form it in a way that takes into consideration more than just this heavily white system, I think police would be great. And they would actually be like a group of people who do what they claim that they are doing. Something that really bothers me, and one of the very first things I think should be fixed, is the fact that training is so goddamn easy. It just is. What an army vet said it the best. There could be a truck barreling at them overseas, going 90 miles per hour, and they have to go through like 8 different steps before they can even take a warning shot. But police are seen as people who can just pull over a kid who ran a stop sign with their guns out. And I think a large part of that is due to the fact that you cannot blame your emotions for taking over in a job that contains your life. If you're flying a plane in the sky and you get scared because of some turbulence and crash the plane, that's on you. Because you didn't keep your cool. But that's part of the training, to know what to do when the plane's going down. And the cops need to have training that focuses like that too. You need to know what to do and how to control yourself in a manner that instead of using your adrenaline to do something chaotic, you can still maintain control. And so I'm fully for the defunding of the police, but I believe this like policy of completely abolishing it will cause other issues, because I cannot help but think about things like the movie where every crime is legal for 24 hours.
Purge.
Yes,
Purge.
The Purge. I cannot see a future that will not turn up like that. That there will be, because white supremacist groups are still going to be here. If there's no police officers, they're going to take to the streets with all these weapons that they had when they were claiming that they don't have to go stay inside for COVID, and they're going to start taking it upon themselves to do stuff. And as bad as it is now, it's going to get a lot worse, because they will start walking through communities, mowing them down without any reason ahead of time to do it.
I think
so
that
it's a huge struggle. Like, as someone who supported BLM for so long, and who like has seen sides of the military, because I have a lot of family in it and I have like firsthand experience with it, it's very hard for me to say that I can't say that I think cops are completely unneeded. I say that the cops that there are right now are wrong.
I think you raise amazing points, because the truth of the matter is that, like, if it's still illegal to do drugs, like, we have to change those laws first. We also have to, like, we're the only country in the world that uses a for-profit prison system. Who thinks it's a good idea to make money off of keeping human beings in cages? Unacceptable. It's unacceptable. But could I just read you guys something real quick and have your opinions and thoughts? Because this is something I've been thinking about a lot recently. And what I kind of brought up with a lot of situations in which police are called now and probably shouldn't be. Like, the first example that this person gave was, you were experiencing a mental health crisis and you are afraid. Imagine you call 311 and the first responder trained in mental health comes to your door. I completely agree that's a better solution than calling 911. Cops don't know shit about healthcare or mental health. That is a better solution. But then there was another, this one I struggled with a little more. It said, incidents of gun violence are rising in your neighborhood. Imagine a trauma-informed crisis intervention team works with community activists to de-arm and de-escalate conflicts. Like, I imagine that there are still going to be situations in which we need quick responses to people who are violent against others. And I do understand I have privilege and the police protect me, and it's scary to think about a world in which some of those protections aren't there. I just want them to be available to everyone and not just white people.
That's exactly the point. It's not about it should be offered to everybody. That is the point. And I think that's what people are losing sight of, is that, like, we're not saying that, like, the idea of a police force is bad. It's that this one, like, again, I will say, was founded to capture runaway slaves. And that ideology is still here today. The idea of the police is a great one, to protect the community and do everything they can to make sure that everyone is safe. But until the actual police force starts embodying those ideas, I can't call them cops. They're not cops. They are something that I fear every day, and that is not something that should be the case. So I completely agree. I think those things still need to happen. I think the consultant, the 311, is a great idea, but that doesn't mean that cops can't also prove useful. But they're not right now. They're not, because I can't. How is it useful to light up a crowd of peaceful protesters with bullets that can shatter eye sockets and have made multiple journalists blind? It's stuff like that. It's just, change is something that needs to happen to a lot of people, and I think people are forgetting that change can happen to the police force itself.
People are like, I don't know what it is about people in the United States, but we cling so tightly to our Constitution, and people think it's sacred, and I'm like, y'all, it was made by racist, sexist, homophobic assholes. Like, we're allowed to change it. How about we just fix it? Or, maybe start a different one, possibly. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's impossible in the age that we live in, unless we actually do have a war in this country, which I think would be unfortunate for many people involved. But I will say that a lot of countries who chose to become democracies after the United States could at least look at us and all our failures and do better.
Zai, I think that was a great response to that particular graphic. Sadie, I've seen this series, this Imagine If series that you're reading from, and I concur with you both. I think there are some great points there. I also think that there, like the whole trauma and crisis intervention in the case of civil unrest. Like,
Yeah.
I'm with both of you guys there. Something that I think we sort of glossed over, and that I want to highlight. I think that what tends to get lost in the drama of the moment is when people talk about systemic racism and they talk about a history of it, they lose the fact, and in the fight to hold people accountable in the present, we often lose sight of the impunity that we've allowed law enforcement, and the impunity that we've given to white supremacy, the whole concept of white supremacy. And I think we need to start tackling that with retroactive measures. And what I mean by that, this is something that I meant to bring up about an hour ago. I forget how it prompted, but Emmett Till's accuser is still alive. She's still kicking. She's admitted to what she admitted to her false accusation, and she's one of thousands of white people who have falsely accused people of color of heinous crimes just so to see if it stuck, because out of a personal vendetta. I could go on. So I think, especially when people talk about reparations, be retroactive. We need to push for retroactive reparations, right? I got caught up just this morning, or maybe it was yesterday morning. These quarantine days are starting to blur together. With Tamir Rice's story again. And something that bothered me then, hearing about it, was hearing that officer got reassigned to a different police department, and he was back out on the streets months later. I think we need to hold these people, this list of names that we have from the past 2 or 3 decades. That's just the tip of the iceberg, right? I think that if we are to reform law enforcement, we need to do the hard, dirty, uncomfortable work of going back into police records and finding out when police departments didn't hold their officers accountable, what the chain of command was in not holding them accountable, and then just fucking do it. And if no one will, fire their ass and get somebody in who will. I've been thinking a lot about retroactive condemnation. I'm not sure if I really added on or if I just started another tangent there. Sorry.
No. I think I'm glad that you brought attention to that, and I'm glad that we didn't just let that gloss over and not discuss it. I think that's huge. I think that's a really, really important thing to think about. It's like, because something that I was always told as a kid is like, if someone gets in trouble for something and they get punished, then people are less likely to do it. And I think that plays huge into why this got so big as it did, because from the very first time that it was publicly put out there that it's happening, nothing was done. People did hashtag Black Lives Matter, rest in peace, whatever, and that was it. Those people never got punished and still haven't been. But now we are on the track. I do not like it has not happened yet. To arrest them is not enough. They must be convicted for the very real thing that they did. When that happens, not just for George, for Brianna, for Ahmaud, and for all these other people, it not only shows that it can be done, that that this police force and the system can learn to respect our lives, but it also discourages people who have that mindset that they can do it and get away with it. And obviously there are still going to be people who can and will because they have influence in places. But a lot of these people, I genuinely think, saw it happen and were like, oh, well, I didn't realize that I could do all these things, and just because I have a badge on my chest, I can get away with it. There was one case that was brought back to light about this man who was jailed for a $25 fine, and things escalated so horribly. And there's a lot of details about it, to the point that he died in a jail cell. And there's just so much evidence about the fact that it wasn't just the police that were beating him and who ended up killing him. And now they're at the point where they might reopen the case. And that is so huge. That it's more than just the stuff that happens now, or that we wait until the next one to do something about it. That we're actively going back and saying these people, justice hasn't been brought for them. And while we can't bring them back, we're going to do our damnedest to make sure that the people that took them away get the punishment that they deserve.
I would just like to add, I don't know if anyone has heard of the Blue Wall of Silence or the Blue Shield or the Blue Code, which is a horrendous, absolutely disgusting informal code that police officers have with each other. It's an informal oath that many police officers protect, which is police officers will denote crimes they have committed, including police brutality, errors, simple things. They will not convict each other for crimes committed because of this blue wall of silence. It is there are so many articles. I'd be happy to share a few, but it is basically why we don't see police officers getting convicted of so many crimes they commit is because of the blue wall of silence. And it is something that goes on in every state, every county. And yes, there are, of course, police officers who don't hold themselves to that. They of course have, a head on their shoulders or a brain, or they're not spineless. But that's just a personal opinion. Anyways, that is why it's so hard to find reparations for so many crimes committed within police forces, and why people who do convict other police officers of these crimes are silenced or fired. It's just a very disgusting rule that they have implemented within each other, and it in a way it's gang-like. It's that's, I'm not saying that lightly. It's just a very interesting thing that I thought I would bring up and see if anybody else has heard of that, or it's pretty quiet. Like I've
heard of it, yeah.
Quiet.
It's the first time I heard of that, I'm like, this is glorified frat.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous. To be willing to say that that they're doing something wrong, but we're not going to do anything about it, when you took up an oath to stop people doing things that are wrong, it's one of the most hypocritical things I've ever heard. Um, yeah. So I know there's like a lot more to discuss. We could do this for hours. I could talk about this for hours, but I don't want to hold everyone here forever. Um, so I'd like just really quick. I'd like to hear everyone's like thoughts about this, like things that they can reflect on that they've learned. Any last minute questions or like little like specific things that you wanted to get people's opinions on, stuff like that, especially from people who didn't get the chance to talk that much. So I'm gonna do it like how I see it. So hey Bennett, um, would you like to give any last minute thing?
Last thought. Um, uh, because retroactive action is something that has been on my mind so much recently, I just want to emphasize that point and emphasize that it doesn't stop at police brutality, uh, especially with regards to people of color. It really needs to be implemented, uh, like Sadie was saying about our it needs to be implemented in our prison industrial complex. Um, we need marijuana reform, and with it, we need expunging of records. We need reparations made to people who have lost decades of their lives with their families over an eighth of weed, over some stupid shit. We need retroactive measures when it comes to prison reform too. Um, I loved hearing everyone's point of view. I love seeing people that I haven't seen in a while and meeting new people who are just as willing to listen and learn and share resources. Thanks, Zai. Thanks for putting this all together.
Of course, man. Of course. Kat, is there anything that you'd like to say?
I'm not much for public speaking, so I'll keep this short. But as these discussions have been going on, I've been Googling and looking up different stuff, and I got a whole reading list tonight. I'm gonna tackle that.
Yes, get educated. Okay, hello. Caroline. Would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I am very, very thankful for you setting this up, Si. There are a lot of people who I know who aren't comfortable talking about stuff. Like, I know that they want change, but they aren't comfortable talking about it. And I think meeting people who, especially like Bennett said, meeting new people who I've never met before and seeing all these beautiful things that, especially all of the articles, like if I could just send them all to me, if you have all this stuff, just keep sending them,
I'll gather them all from everyone so that we can.
Okay, thank you. I want to stay as educated as possible throughout all this, and when those people who are ready to talk about change, I want to be able to help them understand, and I think this is such a good thing, Zai. Seriously, thank you so much.
Of course. Hi, Iris. And I believe that is Hades in the background.
No, that's Persephone.
Okay, I was close.
Um, let's see. Obviously, I want to start thanking you, Zai, for doing this, and I'm gonna try to keep it short, but quickly from my experience, I moved to New York, to the United States a year ago. Like living, obviously I've visited before, but I was not, a resident, an official resident. And back in Spain, things are very different. And now that I'm in the middle of this movement, and I have people like you and many other friends that I have the privilege to meet throughout this year, really quick, just like really stupid with the black squares thing, I could see all my friends from back home suddenly just jumping into this and then posting a black square and then going on with their lives. And that shocked me because I know that if I wasn't here and I wasn't seeing this firsthand, I would be one of those people that I would like listen to it. I would acknowledge that it's happening. I would think that I'm an ally, but then I wouldn't do anything about it. And I'm proud of myself for at least recognizing that that's who I was before. And I know that I still have a lot to learn and, you know, and to read and to understand, but it's been an honor to be here and see everything firsthand. Yesterday, I attended my first protest ever. And obviously back home with my family, that was never something that's even possible. I even got some texts from my dad because he saw a story and my husband was like, did you go to a protest? And I'm like, okay, now I'm going to have to talk about this with him, but whatever. And yeah, I'm just very grateful. And I know that we still have a long way to go, but like I'm here to help as much as possible, to listen to voices that need to be heard and to contribute in whatever small way I can as a white privileged woman that I am. I love you, Zai.
Thank you. I love you. Hi, Natalie.
All right. Yeah, again, just thank you for setting this up. I really can't be more grateful to have a good conversation and an educational conversation with so many people that I haven't met or I haven't talked to in a long time, especially you, Zai. To see your perspective in all this is very eye-opening, especially your YouTube or your Facebook video that you posted. Just hearing that story was absolutely incredible and eye-opening. And I mean, you know, I guess the last point to make is just don't take your foot off the gas pedal. You know, we all have to keep going. We all have to keep fighting and not speak over, but amplify the voices that aren't being heard. And yeah, again, thank you, Zai. I love you so much.
There we go. Now I'm unmuted. Hi, Callie. I hope I'm saying that right, Callie. Okay.
Yeah, got it perfectly. No worries. First of all, I just really like to say thank you. Like, I know a lot of you already know each other and have like pre-existing relationships with each other. So the fact that you guys were still able to be like comfortable and open and talk about all of these issues with me being an unfamiliar face, I really greatly appreciate. And then Zai for organizing this and including me and letting, again, random people more or less pop into this is just wonderful. And it honestly, it could have been bad having like random people. And I just really appreciate the fact that you were comfortable and open with allowing that, thank God, not reality, but possibility. And then just to add to the blue code, this also extends like hugely into like the law field. So like lawyers and judges, Supreme Court judges, and time again, courts actually rule in favor of police, especially after times where evidence is thoroughly stacked against them. And it started more or less, or like started getting more publicized in 2005 in Castle Rock versus Gonzalez in the Supreme Court case, where it was actually ruled that police do not have the duty to protect people. So if anyone wants more information on that, I'd be more than happy. I'm on like a pre-law track, so I have access to a lot of that type of stuff. So if anybody wants more info on those sources, please let me know and I'd be more than happy to share.
Yeah, after this, I definitely want to gather everything everyone said. The paper you mentioned, Sadie, like everything. Send it all to me. I'll get it out to everyone as best I can. Hi, Jenny. I know you came in a little late, but you were still here and got to hear a bunch of things. So I'd love to hear, like, especially if you have any questions about things that maybe we didn't talk about while you're here.
Right, I'm not like much of a talker. I'm like usually pretty shy, so I don't have a lot to say. I just really appreciate being able to like listen and learn from everyone. Like, I just really appreciate being able to hear everyone's like, stories and opinions and thoughts, because like it's important to stay educated and stuff. So I really appreciate that. And I'm also especially interested in anything that's happening in Connecticut because I'm unemployed and fully ready to go fight people over rich people bullshit. And I'm new to the area, so I'd love to learn how I can help in my new hometown.
Thank you so much. Hi, Sadie. Is there anything that you'd like to add or any questions you'd like to ask?
I always have ideas to add. I talk too much for probably my own good. I think that what Bennett was suggesting about retroactive action is probably a really good way to generate a new generation of people who will uphold the law. And it also sounds very sustainable. There's one word that I'm a little caught on, and it's the word condemnation. I think that's being thrown around a lot. I saw one petition, sorry, that was like, sign this petition that's recommending that police who commit police brutality have lifetime sentences in jail. And I was just like, I feel like that's what we're trying to fight against. We want fewer people in jail. We want more enrichment of our communities. And I'm a big believer in prisons should serve to reform and not punish. That's why they're there. I also think what Callie was saying, and Natalie about the Blue Code, and especially its extension into lawyers and all different types of professions, it has a lot to do with one issue that I hate so much, which is academic elitism. Like, only like 5 people in the world are smart enough to say anything, and they make all the decisions, and everybody wants to get tenure because of money, and then they're worried about making decisions that will jeopardize that, like siding with victims of police brutality instead of the police. So I think that's something that we have to fucking dismantle if we want to make any systematic change. And then finally, I'm sorry I talk so much, I just wanted to mention that if you are a voter in the United States of America, you have the right to see your representative and your senator, and they cannot deny you that right. They cannot. So if you want to be politically active, you call your senator's office or email them and say, I'm your constituent. You have to see me, and I want to have a meeting with you. And if you can't do it in person because of COVID or geographic restraints, they can do it over Zoom or some other platform. So use your political power. Use what we have as citizens of the United States. So I'm so proud of you. I'm proud that you're seeing a problem and you're trying to do everything you can to fix it, and that you brought us together. And that's all I have to say. I'm sorry I talked too much. Bye.
Don't apologize for sharing your information. It's good. Hello, Christina. I know you joined a little late, but if you have any questions, things you'd like to say, any reading material to give us?
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much, Sai. I know I'm kind of in a little bit of an echo chamber of thanks, but actually I don't think there's enough thanks to express like how much I appreciate you bringing a group of people together to have a productive conversation, which is something that I think the world really needs nowadays, is ways to figure out how to have productive conversations with each other so that we can reach new understandings as opposed to becoming more divisive against one another. I think under our current demagogue, that's a little bit difficult. And just on Sadie's topic of for-profit prisons, I could go on for hours about the ways in which it's another form of modern day slave labor, essentially. And what makes it even worse is recidivism rates are something like 13%. And for-profit prisons aren't dedicated to rehabilitating and getting people back out there so that they can get back on their feet. They're dedicated to, of course, making a profit, and they can actually cost taxpayers more money than a state-owned prison. Also, the current companies that are operating private prisons are among some of the highest donors for our wonderful demagogue in office.
That should be illegal.
Yeah, it should. No. And under his presidency, I know that the for-profit prison system has expanded. Something to, consider. I was also actually looking into creating some sort of easily accessible information directed at a white audience to kind of create a conversation about everything going on. Something along the lines of a YouTube series where all the AdSense would go towards charities or organizations like Reclaim the Block, like Black Lives Matter. I was debating the ethics of that because I don't want to be the person that takes Black history and tries to profit off of it. I want to treat it with the respect that it deserves, while still creating information that's accessible to people, who might not have access to those sorts of resources or who might not be as inclined to look into it. Just knowing that growing up in Indiana, the school I actually went to was historically a white-only school way back in the day. And it was very clear that they treated their Black students more like commodities than actual, I'm trying to find the right word, like ways to incorporate new perspectives, ways to incorporate diversity and help people learn and understand that, we're not all in this bubble. And I think it's the kids in the bubble that I want to reach out to try to influence them to pop it, influence them to keep asking questions, keep demanding answers, keep finding, searching for documentation. I'm going to shut up because I'm rambling now, which is my Achilles heel, if you will. But that's just kind of like the amalgamation of thoughts in my head currently.
Thank you. I think I cannot express how much I agree with everything you just said. I think the last thing I'm going to leave off on this is that this has been one of the most helpful things. Sharing information on social media and arguing without having discussions like this where we're learning new information, offering each other new sources of information and stuff like that. I really hope that other people are engaging in stuff like this because I've learned a lot from this. It's things that I haven't thought about because I have a perspective of being on the inside of it, but the outside perspective can help me too. And I'm so thankful for all of you guys for giving me that outside perspective. So now I can look at this in other ways and try to figure out the best thing for everybody to go about this while also making sure that I'm staying as active and progressive as I can. To anybody who may happen to be listening to this, because we are recording this, I hope that the biggest thing is that you take away from this is that, like many of you said, we were able to talk to each other and learn. All of us are talking about different things that we're learning from. I mentioned how I let a lot of this stuff, this subtle racism that we think is small but still not okay, I let those people use it, and I allowed that to happen, and I can't do that. You guys mentioned how you're learning to speak out against things you do, or learning how to be a better ally and help each other in better ways. So I hope that whoever happens to be listening to this can also find information that they can use, or at least be open to the idea of learning from each other. Because the best way to learn it is not through sitting and watching one news media that has their own agenda behind it, but it's by listening to all these people with all their very real, raw experiences. So thank you guys for being willing to share them with each other and anybody else who may be seeing it. But yeah, with that, I will stop the recording.